With all the juicy berries and fallen nuts they were collecting, she would be able to make a lovely pie that evening. Snow White looked down the trail. Not too far off, a wooden bridge swayed above a river. Just then, a gust of wind blew her toward the new path. She laughed. "I think that's a sign, don't you?" she asked her friends. They headed down the trail and across the rickety wooden bridge. On the other side of the bridge, the path curved. Snow White was sure it led somewhere special. The trail wound left and then right before opening into a sunlit grove. The clearing was filled with nut trees. "How wonderful!" Snow White exclaimed. She dashed from one to the other. There were walnut trees, chestnut trees, and almond trees. The grove even had a cluster of gooseberry bushes. "Now, you pick the nuts from the high branches," she told the owl. He saluted with one wing and flew to the very top of a tree. "And you gather the ones on the ground," she said to the beaver. The little animal shook his tail and scampered off. "And you," Snow White turned to the turtle. But he wasn't there. She laughed. It always took the turtle a little longer to catch up. "That's okay. I'll take care of the berries." Snow White and her friends got to work. The wind whistled through the branches as Snow White filled her basket. Suddenly, a mighty gust snatched Snow White's cape right off her shoulders. "Oh, dear!" she cried. She got up and began to chase her cape through the woods. The wind carried it down a pebbled path and past a large rock. It flew farther and farther away. Finally, the cape snagged on a tree branch. Snow White untangled it. But when she turned around, she realized that she was lost. For a moment, Snow White was frightened. Then she put her hands on her hips. "I'll just have to find my way back on my own," she said. Snow White looked around. Which way had she come from? The left or the right? Then she glanced at her feet. Her slippers were muddy. She'd left footprints in the dirt. "I can follow my own tracks," she exclaimed. Snow White carefully followed her own trail of footprints. Soon, the ground changed from dirt to pebbles. There weren't any footprints here. "Now which way should I go?" she wondered. Suddenly, she noticed a large rock up ahead. "I passed that when I chased my cape," she exclaimed. Snow White hurried toward the rock. Once she was there, she could see the grove in the distance. "Owl! Beaver!" she called. Hearing her voice, the owl flew from the top of a walnut tree, and the beaver scampered out to meet her. They both looked very relieved. "I had such an adventure," Snow White told them, picking up her basket. Then she looked around. "Oh, my, is Turtle not here yet?" she asked. "What if he got lost the same way I did? We had better go and find him." Snow White, Owl, and Beaver hurried back along the forest path. When they reached the river's edge, they discovered that the old bridge had broken. "Oh, no!" Snow White cried. She could see the poor turtle. He was stranded on a rock in the middle of the water. The wind must have caused the bridge to fall with him on it. Now there was no way for Turtle to climb the steep walls of the river bank. Snow White studied the ground where the bridge had been attached. The wooden stakes at one end had come loose and been swept away by the water. Now the bridge dangled from the other side of the river, its rope ends trailing in the water. "Don't worry, little turtle," she called. "We'll save you." But the water was rushing too fast for her to swim. How could she rescue the turtle and fix the bridge? "Owl can fly over," Snow White said thoughtfully. "And Beaver is good at chewing. There must be something we can do." Suddenly, Snow White had an idea. She snapped a stick off a nearby tree and drew a picture of the broken bridge in the dirt. "Here's what we need to do," she explained to her friends. "Owl, if you fly to the other side and pick up the rope ends, Beaver can chew some new wooden stakes. And I can hammer them in place. Together, we can rebuild the bridge." The three friends went to work. The Beaver liked to gnaw, so chewing new stakes from tree branches was easy for him. Once he was done, Snow White hammered the stakes into the ground with a rock. Meanwhile, the owl flew across the river and took the ends of the ropes in his beak. But the bridge was heavy, so he hooted to some of his bird friends to help him lift it out of the water. Then Snow White pulled the bridge tight and tied the ropes to the stakes. "Good as new," she cried. "Thank you, friends." Snow White quickly stepped onto the bridge. They had done such a good job, it hardly swayed at all. When she reached the middle, she dropped to her knees. Looking over the side, Snow White saw the turtle waiting on the rock just below her. But the water was picking up speed. She needed to get him right away. Snow White stretched down as far as she could and escaped the turtle up into her arms. She was just in time. A big gush of water washed right over the rock just as Snow White picked up the turtle. The turtle breathed a sigh of relief. He nuzzled Snow White to thank her. "What are friends for?" she said with a smile. "I think that's enough adventure for one day. Let's head home to bake that pie." Together, the friends made their way back down the path. This time, they knew just where they were going. When Snow White and her animal friends got back to the cottage, she baked a lovely gooseberry nut pie. Just as it was coming out of the oven, the 7 dwarfs arrived home. "That's mighty delicious looking," Bashful said softly. "Did you have any problems today?" Doc asked. Snow White winked at the owl, the beaver, and the turtle. "Nothing we couldn't handle," she replied.